Hello, grade 12s. I'm so glad you can join us now as we start revising. And we actually started revising a while back. Remember, it's never early to start revising. It is that time of the year where we need to start consolidating all of the knowledge that we've learned from all the subjects that we've learned during grade 12 and indeed grade 11 as well. So we start off our revision sessions by me giving you a few hints. That's if you need any, please take this advice. If not, well, hopefully then you are ready and well prepared for your exams and you don't need any hints. But if you do, here's a little tip for you. Don't spend too much time on any question, okay? So this is actually quite a hard one to do. I do realize that, because once you find a question that sort of gets your mind bogged down, it's really difficult to move on. But you need to start practicing to move on. And where do you start practicing that? During your revision time, because remember, during revision you're supposed to already be going over past papers. So practice this during your revision, and when you are studying, calculate how much of time you should spend on the question according to the mark allocation. So that's very important. According to the mark allocation, you decide how much of time you need. Then put an alarm on for when you should finish, and put your pen down as soon as that alarm sounds. A good general rule that I always give learners is it's a mark a minute. So if a question is roughly, say, 2 marks, you shouldn't spend more than 2 minutes on it. You may spend less than 2 minutes, but never ever more than 2 minutes on a 2-mark question. And that's a rough guide to help you as you start preparing for your exams. Okay? If you can't do the question, you get stuck, you don't know what to do. Well, then you're going to make like the movie, the animation Frozen. You're going to let it go, let it go. I know it's so hard, and I could break out into song, Let It Go, but you don't want to hear that. So you need to let it go. It's very difficult, I know that. But if there's something that you're spending way too much of time on, it's not worth your time and your marks, the marks that you neglect to get, spending too much extra time on that one very tough question. So let it go, move on. If you don't know something, don't spend more than a few seconds staring at it, move on. Don't let it simmer in the back of your head and then block out the thoughts you need for the next part. Come back to it only if you have time at the end of the exam. So you might not get the marks for the questions you attempted and got wrong, but you definitely won't get the marks for questions you never got to at all, because you ran out of time wasting time on something you weren't sure of how to proceed with. All right. Now let's look at specifically for your finance exam, the breakdown for CAPS. Your finance growth and decay section of your exam paper is roughly about 15 to 18 marks. That accounts about 10 to 12% of your final exam paper 1. All right. Okay. Some of the key concepts that you're going to use in your finance paper. And one of the important things that you need to always remember when dealing with any type of financial maths questions is to keep the rate of interest per time unit and the time period in the same units, okay? Some of the formulae that we will be dealing with. Simple interest, you'll remember that it's a simple way of growing money, and therefore it's got a very simple formula. A is equal to P times 1 plus I times N. You know that P is the initial amount that you invest. I is the interest rate in decimal form. And N is the period or the number of years. Generally, when you're dealing with simple interest, your N is always going to be in a number of years. Simple interest pays the same amount of interest every year, so it's a flat rate, it's fixed, it's a non-growing return, and as I said, it's the most basic type of return. It has quite a simple formula as well. All right. Then remember, the other type of interest you could get is compound interest, and we know by now, hopefully, that compound growth means your interest earns interest, so your money grows faster or you make more money faster. Right, the formula A is equal to P times 1 plus I to the N. That's also given to you on your formula sheet. You also talk about annuities in grade 12. An annuity is a series of equal payments at regular intervals. And we use annuities in 2 ways. When we invest money, we then use the future value formula Future value of an annuity measures how much you would have in the future given a specified rate of return. So X would be your payment per period, and that's in your formula. F is equal to X times 1 plus I to the power of N minus 1 over I. N is your number of payments, and I is your interest rate. And remember, these two must always match up. All right. So the future value will calculate, well, this formula here, this specific one, all right, as it is in its standard form, which is given to you on your formula sheet, that calculates the future value of an annuity, of an ordinary annuity. All right. To calculate the future value of an annuity due, you multiply this result by 1 plus I. So an annuity due, for those of you who don't know, it means that your payments start immediately instead of one period into the future or at the end of the payment period. So an annuity due, all you do is you're going to take your normal formula for your future value and you move it one period forward to account for the interest. All right. Okay. The other way we use annuities is in loans, and that's when we work out present values. The present value of an annuity is the current, or another word for current, present value of a set of cash flows in the future. And again, you're given your specified return of I. The formula that's given to you there is also given on your formula sheet. Now, what you'll also notice, so that's the formula that we use for present value, okay? Now when we get to depreciation, and we've talked about this in quite a lot of detail, you know things, assets like vehicles and machinery and equipment and all of those things, they lose value over time. That loss in value is what we call depreciation. So something happens to our formulae and we change our formulae for simple interest and compound interest to show that our asset is depreciating. For straight line depreciation, we make a slight change to the simple interest formula and we call it simple depreciation as well. Instead of 1 plus I times N, we change that plus to a minus between the two terms in the bracket. For compound depreciation or reducing balance method, you know, your normal formula for compound interest looks like this. But when we're dealing with depreciation, what happens to the plus? It becomes a minus. All right. Okay, so that's just some of the key terms and terminology that you need to be aware of as you get into your grade 12 exam. You need to already be prepared to answer questions where you're going to use those different formulae. These formulae are given to you on a formula sheet. But if you don't know where to use it, it doesn't help you if they're given to you. You need to know where to use it. How do you learn where to use it? You've got to start practicing and revising very early on in the year. And as it is already now, you should be in your revision phase. All right. So we're going to look at questions that come from past papers, and this is our first question for today. I'll give you some time just to take down the key information from this question. We'll go through the actual answer together, take down the key information that you need. This one comes from the DBE Maths Paper 1, November 2015, question 7, and we will give you 3 minutes to have a look at this question. Okay, everyone, so this is quite a long question to take in. Remember, if you can find a past paper booklet, or if you do have online access to past papers, this is coming from the DBE Maths Paper 1. It's question 7 from last year, end of year paper, November 2015. Okay, let's go through the question together. You've got that the graph of F shows the book value of a vehicle X years after the time that Joe bought it. The graph of G shows the cost price of a similar new vehicle X years later. Okay, so for those of you who can't see, that's G, and that's the graph of F. So this is Joe buying the vehicle here, and you can see that F is showing the price of, or the value of his vehicle X years later, and then a similar vehicle that's going up in value, obviously it's a new vehicle, and that's X years later as well, is represented by graph G. First question for 1 mark. How much did Joe pay for the vehicle? So what was the original price that Joe paid? Well, we can see that the value for the vehicle is given on the vertical axis, on the y-axis, and we see that that value starts at 450,000 Rand at time 0. So therefore the value that Joe will pay for the vehicle is 450,000 Rand. Okay, as you can see, it's 1 mark. It should really not take you more than a minute to answer that one, maybe a couple of seconds. Okay, next question. Use the reducing balance method to calculate the percentage annual rate of depreciation of the vehicle that Joe bought. All right, so now you've got to have been practicing finance questions to understand that when they're asking you reducing balance method, which formula do you need to use? You need to use the one. It looks similar to compound interest, but the plus sign has been changed to a minus sign to accommodate the depreciation, okay? This is for 4 marks, so it shouldn't take you more than 4 minutes. So I know for 1.2, the formula I'm going to be using looks like this. All right, and they've given us well, what have they given us? They said use the reducing balance method to calculate the percentage annual rate of depreciation. So what have they given us? Let's go back to the graph, okay? And we're looking at Joe's vehicle. So you can see they've given you this point Q. They've given you the time in years is 4, and they've given you the value of the vehicle at that point is 243,736 Rand and 90 cents. Okay, so they've given you the value, that's A, the final value at that point in time of 4 years. You know that the initial value was 450,000. So we're going to put those values into our equation, and then we're going to solve for I, which will be our rate of depreciation. Okay, so A is 243,736.90, and P, the value of the present or the current value of the car was 450,000 Rand. And that's over a period of 4 years that we see this depreciation taking place. I know it's 4 because at the point Q, I'm given that the time at that point is 4. So the value on the x-axis is 4. So the only value that or variable I'm left to solve for is I. So we need to strip away to get to the value of I in this equation. So I divide both sides by 450,000. So my equation now looks like this. And then at the same time, what we want to do is we want to get rid of the power of 4. How do we do that? Well, to get rid of a power of 4, you need to root both sides by the same power. So we're going to take the 4th root on both sides. All right, and then I'll be left with 1 minus I. And then to get, and obviously there's a formula you can use to get to I straight away, but I want to show you that even without knowing that formula, you can strip away and get to this yourself. So it's the 4th root of this expression Okay, we still need to get rid of the 1 minus I, so I'm going to do two things. I'm going to take the 1 over to the left-hand side and at the same time multiply by the negative in front of I. So your equation will look like this, 1 minus the 4th root of that fraction. Okay, and now it's simply a matter of putting that into your calculator to see what our rate of depreciation is. Okay, so we're saying 1 minus, we're taking the 4th root, and here we want a fraction, so it's going to be 243,736.90 divided by 450,000. Okay, and let's see what that gives us. So that gives us that I is equal to 0,1421. Remember that you don't round off at this point. What you now need to do, because remember you want your rate of depreciation, you need to now multiply this amount on your calculator by 100 to get your rate of depreciation. So we times by 100, and we see that our rate of depreciation in percentage form is 14.21%. Okay, guys, so that one there, that shouldn't take you more than 4 minutes. Obviously, it would take me more than 4 minutes because I'm explaining and doing the question at the same time on the screen. But in practice, if I was doing this really, really quick, 2 minutes for question 1.2 even. So remember, the mark is your guide. 4 marks. The maximum that should take you is about 3.5, 4 minutes. Okay, I think though what we do need in terms of time is a little break, right? So we've got one more question to do on the screen. We'll come back and do that after this quick break. Back after this. Welcome back, everyone. Right, remember now in today's lesson we are looking at finance. We've already discovered that finance is about 10 to 12% of the final paper, paper 1. And we need to practice a lot of financial maths questions so that we understand what the questions are asking us, and more importantly, so that we understand when to use those formulae that are given to you in your formula sheet. That only comes by practicing. All right. Okay, so we were still on question 1. We had the last part to do here, where it said that if the average rate of price increase of the vehicle is 8.1% per annum, calculate the value of A, and we see that a guideline there is 3 marks, so it shouldn't take us more than 3 minutes. Well, certainly it'll take me more than 3 minutes because I've got to explain at the same time. So you're told that the average rate of price increase of the vehicle, so you're talking about the same vehicle, but now we're moving to the other graph, the graph G of X. Okay, so we're starting with a vehicle that costs 450,000 Rand. At time 4, we don't know what the value of the vehicle is. However, we do know that the interest rate is 8.1% per annum. Okay, so we've got the interest rate, we've got a time to work with, and we've got the initial value. So therefore, the question is asking to calculate the value of A. So in other words, they want the function value at the point when X is 4. Okay, so we're going to appreciate the value of this vehicle. How do we appreciate a value? We use the formula A is equal to P times 1 plus I to the power of N. A gives us our function value. So this is really the graph of G of X. So G of X is equal to 450,000, which is the initial value of the vehicle, times 1 plus I. Remember your I was 8.1% per annum. So you're going to write it as 0.081. That's dividing by 100 to get that rate. And N is going to be 4 because we saw that the X value at the point when X is 4, the Y value is A. So therefore the X value, the number of years is 4. So that's what we use for N. Okay, we simply want to see what is the value of this vehicle in 4 years' time. So we put that into the calculator. Okay, so we type in 450,000 times by 1 plus 0,081. Remember, all I've done there is I've taken my interest rate and divided by 100. And that's going to be raised to the power of 4. And this gives us 614,490 Rand. And we round off to 66 cents. Okay, so that is the value of the vehicle in 4 years' time. Okay, don't lose this question, because the next question that I'm going to give you is still pertaining or still part of this exact same question, which was question 7 in the November 2015 examination in paper 1. So we're continuing with the same question, but obviously, so we've got the same information, but the question is going to be slightly different. So this is now the 4th part of this question. It's for 5 marks. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to read through this question. You've already got a lot of the information that you'll need to help you answer this one. So we said 2 minutes starting now. Okay, everyone, so hopefully that was enough time for you to get the main information that you needed in this question to be able to work out a solution. Okay, remember this builds on from the last question that we did, so you should still already be thinking about this Joe's vehicle, and now we're adding in the sinking fund. Okay, so 1.4 says, a vehicle that costs 450,000 Rand now is to be replaced at the end of 4 years. Okay, the old vehicle will be used as a trade-in. Okay, so that's interesting. It's going to be used as a trade-in. They then say that a sinking fund is created to cover the replacement cost of this vehicle. Payments will be made at the end of each month. So I start thinking about annuities. I start thinking that that's an ordinary annuity. The first payment will be made at the end of the 13th month, and the last payment will be made at the end of the 48th month. And then they give you that the interest rate is 6.2% per annum, compounded monthly. You are asked to calculate the monthly payment into the fund. So it sounds like quite a lot of information to take in, and it really is. So what we need to do is we need to break this down a little bit further. And what's useful in this situation is a timeline. Okay, so we're going to set up a little timeline, and we're going to use it to assist us in answering this question. We know that the vehicle currently costs 450,000 Rand, but it's going to be replaced at the end of 4 years. So it's going to be replaced at this point in time, where you see that its value would have depreciated from 450,000 to 243,736 Rand. However, if we want to replace with the same vehicle at the same point in time, from the last question, we saw that that vehicle actually appreciates to a value of, let's go back here, we saw that that value was 614,490 Rand and 66 cents. So it's 614. In fact, we've got that answer still on our calculator. 614,490.66. Okay. So that's going to be the price of a new vehicle in 4 years' time. This old vehicle, remember, is being used as a trade-in. So therefore, when you set up the sinking fund, you're not going to try and save the total cost of the new vehicle, which is 614,000. You're going to trade in the old vehicle. That means from the old vehicle price, you can take away the value or the sum of the current vehicle. So remember, that vehicle still has value in 4 years' time. You basically do a trade-in. They're going to take away that amount, that 243,000. They're going to take that away from the 614,000, and then that's the amount that you're going to have to pay for the new vehicle. All right. So therefore, what we're saying on our timeline is the amount that we're going to need to pay, the future value, is going to be that 614,490 Rand and 66 cents minus the 243,736.90. So we'll need to subtract that. That's going to be the value that this sinking fund needs to accumulate to. Okay, let's see what else is happening. They say that payments will be made at the end of each month. The first payment will be made at the end of the 13th month. So in other words, at time 1, so that's your ordinary annuity if we're looking at it in terms of months. So that's term 12, and you're paying at, it's time 12, you're paying at the end of the 12th month, at the end of the 13th month. So therefore, and your last payment will be made at the end of the 48th month. So therefore, your time period from end of T12, which is the 13th month, to time 48, that's going to be a 36-month period that you'll be making payments for. So you're going to pay at each month at the end for 36 months. So that's going to give me my N. Okay, the sinking fund earns interest at a rate of 6.2% per annum compounded monthly. Remember, your interest rate and your time period needs to match, and it does. So we know that the correct interest rate to use, we're going to divide by 12. So it's going to be 6.2% divided by 12. All right. Okay, and it is a sinking fund, so we're going to try and build up to a future value. So therefore, for me to now work out what the value at each time period is, so let's just say it's X, okay? So if I want to then work out what each of those X values are, what do? We use the formula for future value. So what is the formula? Future value is equal to X times by 1 plus I to the power of n minus 1 all over I. Okay. Our future value at that point in time, we're going to say 614,490. So let's just do that on our calculator. The value that we're building up to, minus 243,736.90. And that's going to give us 370,000. So that's the value we want this account to accumulate. 753. Don't round off at this point. Okay, let's just keep it like that. So 370,753 Rand, 76.48 cents. Okay, that's equal to x 1 plus I to the power of n. Now you've got to be careful. Your I is going to be divided by 12, so it's going to be 0,062 over 12. And your n, your period, is going to be 36 months minus 1, and that's all over 0,062 divided by 12. Okay, now at this point, all you need to do is really change the subject of the formula so that you can get the x by itself. Okay, so let's quickly do that. So we're going to get x is equal to, we're going to multiply by the denominator to get rid of that on both sides. So your sum is going to now look like this, your equation. This will be 377.53. 7648 times by your interest rate. Okay, and now we're going to strip away. Remember, we don't want the minus 1 attached to the x at all. We don't want this whole entire bracket, in fact, that whole bracket 1 plus I to the n minus 1. We don't want any of that to be attached to the x. So what do? We divide both sides by that bracket. And we're going to let the calculator do the work for us. Remember, it looks like quite a massive calculation, but luckily we don't have to do each part individually. We're going to do the whole thing on the calculator. Okay, so let's go for it. All right, so we've got 370, all of that still on the calculator. We're going to times that by 0,0 0,062 divided by 12. Okay, you can get that answer if you like, and then you're going to divide that whole thing, and now we're going to use brackets by, let's open another bracket, 1 plus our interest rate, which is 0,062 over 12. Close your bracket, because that entire thing is raised to the power of 36. And then we subtract 1. Okay, so you divide by that entire big bracket, and we get our payment each month, 9,397 Rand and 12 cents if we round up. Okay, so that's going to be your payment that you will need to put into the sinking fund each month so that it builds up to that value so that you can afford to replace this vehicle by a similar vehicle in 4 years' time. That took a lot of work for us to go through, but simply because we needed to explain the concept, I needed to go through the concept with you. But really, in an exam situation, you need to be setting out this in a way so that it won't take you more than 5 minutes, as this was only 5 marks. All right, guys. So I think it's time for us to take a quick break before we look at our next finance question for today's lesson. Back after this. Welcome back, everyone. I hope that you're with us in our discussion on financial calculations and that you know how to use your calculator especially, and how to use your formulae and when to use them, those that are given to you on your formula sheet. We're going to go into the next question for today, and that comes once again from your DBE Maths Paper 1. This, however, comes from the June-July 2015 paper. This is question 7 in that paper. If you've got the paper, it's a good reference point. What I'd like to do is to give you guys a couple of minutes just to take down the key information. So literally read through the question and then write down what is A, what is P, what is X, what are the things that you need to find out. And in fact, in this type of question, a timeline will be very useful. So on your timeline, summarize the information from this question. I'm going to give you guys 2 minutes. Well, actually, let's make it 3 minutes because there is quite a lot of information. 3 minutes to take this down. Okay, everyone, so this one was an interesting question, and as I said, this comes from the June-July 2015 paper, last year's paper, and this is question 7. Again, we're dealing with the topic of finance, which is about 13 marks in the exam, so it's one that you need to know quite well. It's about 10 to 12% of your final paper 1. All right, let's go through the question together, and remember you had to mark down the key information as you read the question. So we are told that Tebogo opened a savings account with a single deposit of 5,000 Rand at the beginning of June 2015. So what I want to start doing at this point is let's already draw up our timeline and use it to mark key points, okay, or key moves, right? So let's say that this June 2015, that's time 0. And he puts in a single deposit of 5,000 Rand at the beginning of June 2015. He then made 24 monthly deposits of 800 Rand at the end of every month, starting at the end of June 2015. All right, so this 5,000 Rand goes in at the beginning of June 2015. At the end of June 2015, which we're going to call time 1, what happens? He starts then making these monthly deposits of 800 Rand. And that continues all the way for how many periods? It says that he keeps going for 24 monthly deposits. All right. And they also tell you the account earns an interest rate of 15% per annum compounded monthly. So we know that the interest rate we're going to use is going to be 0.15 divided by 12. Calculate the amount that should be in his savings account immediately after he makes the last deposit. So what's interesting here, there's two things happening at the same time. He's put in 5,000 Rand, and then he makes these annuity payments of 800 Rand at the end of June, which means it's going to be an ordinary annuity, right? And this is going to continue for a period of 24 months. So those two things we can combine into one, or we can do them separately. You can treat the 5,000 Rand as a single investment, work out that value at time 24, and then add that to the future value of the annuity, or you can do it all in one step, okay? So the value that he's going to have in his account, his final amount, and I'm going to write it all in one step. There's two things happening here. We're going to have this amount of 5,000 Rand just simply growing over this 2-year period. So 24 months, that tells us 2 years, right? So it's going to be, we know, P times 1 plus I to the N. And what's going to happen there is I'm taking the 5,000, I'm growing it for a period of 2 years. To that, we're going to add the annuity, which is given by your formula, 800 into 1 plus I to the N minus 1 all over I. So those two, when you put it together, those two are going to give you the total value of his savings account. So it's going to be using the compound interest formula to grow the amount of 5,000 for a period of 24 months, and then using the annuity value formula to work out what the future value of his annuity is. Okay, so let's put in some numbers here. So the first part of this is going to become 5,000 into 1 plus I. Remember here it was 15. What was the interest rate again? It was 15% per annum compounded monthly. So 0.15 divided by 12, and our N needs to match, so that's going to be for period 24 plus 800. We've got the same interest rate, which makes life a little bit easier. And N there again is 24 minus 1 all over I, which is 0.15 divided by 12. Okay, so once you've got it to this part, guys, I mean, it really is just a matter now of using your calculator to work out what the answer is. So the most difficult part here is getting from all of that information, summarizing that information into an equation that makes financial mathematical sense. Okay, so that's really the hardest part of this. Once we've got into this part, we're really just going to use our calculator to work out the final value. Okay, let's go through this again. How do we get this final amount? Remember what we did is we took the fact that he had 5,000 Rand at the beginning of that time period. We grew that using the compound interest formula to find out what is that amount going to be at time 24, so at the end of 2 years. And then we did a separate annuity with the 800 Rand. It was an ordinary annuity, and that continues for a period of 24 months. And we know that our payments each month was 800, and we're going to simply use our formula to work that out. Okay, let's do that now. Let's put that all into our calculator. So we've got 5,000 Rand. In fact, I'm going to do it into two separate parts to make the calculation look a little simpler on the calculator. So what was this again? We've got 0.15 over 12 to indicate that the interest is compounded monthly. That's raised to the power of 24. Remember not to round off. So we've got that our value here, our first value, is 6,736 Rand and 75 cents, comma, we're going to not round off, so let's keep that whole thing. So it's 5,252. Obviously, I've shown you how to use your calculator memory before. You can do it that way. You can just put that into your memory and then carry on. All right. Okay, let's do the next part of this question. So we're going to type in now 800 times, what do we have? We've got two brackets there. So we've got 1 plus 0.15. There we go. Over 12. That's raised to the power of 24. And from that, we're going to subtract 1. And then we're going to divide the entire thing by 0.15 over 12. Okay, so that investment gives us, so we're going to say here, plus 22,230 Rand and 46,723 cents. Remember, you could just keep that on your calculator and then add our last answer. All right, not the last answer, that didn't keep our previous answer. Hey, so we're going to get 22,230.46723 plus 6736.755252, and we get 28,967 Rand and 22 cents. So that's going to be the final amount in his savings account. Obviously, as I said, you can use your memory buttons so that you don't have to rewrite those calculations, but we just quickly did what we had on the screen, so it was easy to work with. All right, guys. So these are just some of the types of questions that you can come across in exams. To see what other types of questions you can get, obviously, you need to be revising your past papers already. Until the next time, keep revising. Cheers.
Siyabangena. Wars and Matrix is back and better than ever, with catch-up lessons, revision and learning support on more platforms than ever before. There are great support materials on the DBE Cloud. Find us on television, and revise 10 subjects. And if you miss something, relax, Ntwana. Go to our YouTube channel or DSTV catch-up. Need help? Check out Vele, our Telegram-based chat platform where teachers are waiting to help you. Prefer WhatsApp? Send questions or voice notes to our Waza Matrix WhatsApp line. And that's not all. Want to test yourself? Check out the Matric Live app. Hey Matrix 2021, we've got you covered. Confused where to go? Visit the Waza Matrix website at wazamatrix.co.za. Waza Matrix.
Hey South Africa, September means it's time for Siyavula's annual 1 million maths competition, where you can practice maths and science questions online with great prizes for both learners and teachers. It's a chance for you to learn and win. To enter, sign up at siyavula.com and opt into 1 million maths. Good results in maths and science can open the door to a brighter future. So sign up to Siyavula today and join the competition.